Alright guys, welcome back to another Master and Apprentice video. Today we're doing a video that you guys don't care about. Every time we do these videos, it gets like 10 views I think, but I feel the need to do it because this is the whole reason we started this channel. It's a Star Wars tier list. We do it yearly because, you know, Star Wars releases new projects every year, and I felt the need to every year, once a year, go over the Star Wars projects, reassess and reevaluate and re-rank. And, you know, a lot of the movies kind of stay the same, and, you know, even now some of the shows are kind of staying the same, but things change, and especially now when at a time where Star Wars is, you know, not very popular right now. I think it's okay to talk about how you feel about certain Star Wars projects of recent, you know, because, you know, things change, but also you want to kind of look back on some of the opinions and things you felt before about projects that maybe you don't anymore. So with all that being said, we're going to do just a Star Wars tier list. It's probably going to be long-winded, but we're going to try to keep it shorter. But it's just going over all the Star Wars movies, shows on, you know, Disney Plus that you can watch, right? So with all that being said, hopefully we don't miss anything, but here we go. So we've got George Lucas at the top of the tier list. Great at the second. Not satisfactory, straight up arse, and haven't watched yet. So if we're missing any, I try to find everything, so if we are missing, just let us know down in the comments. Don't mind these ads. I guess they're free advertisement for our YouTube channel, but cool. Otherwise, the first one we're going to start with is A New Hope. I always was of the opinion that A New Hope was kind of boring. I never loved it, especially as a younger kid. Growing up with the prequels. Prequels were my, you know, butter, my golden butter. I just loved the prequels. The original trilogy were fun, but they were grainy. They weren't as, you know, as much special effects. I didn't love it. But getting older and watching it, I have grown a lot more appreciation for the old trilogy, the original trilogy. But I definitely still think A New Hope is probably the weakest of the original trilogy. So I would go with I or great. Definitely don't think it's George Lucas. I think it's fun, but you could definitely tell when this movie came out, it was meant to kind of be a one-off. They didn't have as much confidence going in, which is fair. But compared to the rest of the Star Wars, I think it's just not, it doesn't capture the same cinema feeling.
Yeah, I want to go with like the higher end of I.
Then we have Empire Strikes Back. I think Empire Strikes Back is great. I do think I think a lot of people have this one as their favorite, fair enough. But I think this one was a lot more popular if you were there when it came out, when it happened. You know, that feeling of Darth Vader revealing himself to Luke, Palpatine revealing himself, all these things. They kind of had a nostalgia feeling. You had to be there to kind of experience it. And I think it definitely plays onto some people's feeling of how they feel about it. I wasn't there, obviously, so I feel like a little bit more hindsight. I feel like I don't have as much reverence. I still really enjoy this. I don't think it's the best of George Lucas. I think pretty much the ending of the trilogy, for both the original trilogy and the prequels, was the best George Lucas ever made. I think Empire Strikes Back is really great, but that's it. I think it's great. I don't think it's the best of George Lucas.
Yeah, I was going to say it's definitely up there, but they made better movies, so I'll go with great.
Yeah. Then we have Return of the Jedi. I love Return of the Jedi. I go back and forth whether it's my favorite over Revenge of the Sith. It's super, super good. Like I said, when I was younger, I didn't love it as much, but I definitely did enjoy it. It's such a great cinema film, but just like if you're in love and enthralled in the story of Star Wars, I think it captures it all. I really love Return of the Jedi. I think it's top of George Lucas. It definitely rivals Revenge of the Sith for me.
Yeah, it's definitely up there. I mean, a great close to the trilogy. Just Luke throughout that whole movie is so fun to watch. It's definitely in top.
Then we have the Clone Wars show. I gotta say, I think the Clone Wars show is still probably the best show Star Wars has. There's some other really great shows, but I think Clone Wars is still the best. I would put Clone Wars in great or George Lucas. I don't think there's a better show than it. But you know, we're ranking the whole show, not one season, and there are some weak parts. You know, even in season 7, which is a great season, they're in the middle there. It's just like it was kind of gloobly glob, right? Season 1, I felt it was a lot of gloobly glob. Season 2 was a lot of gloobly glob. After season 3, there was parts that were super, super awesome as a Star Wars fan, as just any kid watching a show. But there are also some parts that, like, as a kid, you're like, what is happening? This is super boring. This is super childish. And I think that definitely ranks it down lower for me. So I'd go great for this.
Yeah, I think it goes in great. It's an amazing show overall. But yeah, a little bit of weak points here and there.
I don't have this list put in any order, so I'm just going off of what the list is in. So there's no particular order. The next up we have is Force Awakens. Obviously, the sequel trilogy is divisive and not beloved by as many Star Wars fans, but I don't think it's terrible. Going back and watching it, not recently, but the last year or so, I don't disenjoy it as much as I experienced, a couple times through, but I still don't think it's as great as the starter off, Phantom Menace or A New Hope, but I don't think it's terrible. You know what I mean? I just really don't appreciate the unoriginality of Force Awakens. I feel like it's almost a copy and paste of A New Hope, which I don't love that. But I don't think there was anything that really takes it apart truly for me. So I'd go meh or I, bottom of I. I think it's okay. I don't think it's terrible.
Yeah, I might move it later, but I think bottom of I is where I'd put this one. I mean, the one thing that does take it up a bit, I mean, the visual effects in this are really good, and of course it is because it's a newer project, but that takes it up a little bit, so that's why I'll put it up there.
Then we have Andor. People love Andor or don't care about it. I'm like right in the middle. I think Andor is pretty good, but I gotta say, out of all the Star Wars projects on this list, watching this show, I felt like the most out of it. I felt like it wasn't really a Star Wars show. I didn't not enjoy it, but it just felt so bizarre to me watching the show in the moment, and I haven't gone and rewatched it. This is one of the few things I haven't watched twice yet, or more than twice. So with that being said, maybe I need to rewatch it again and just binge it. I don't know. I gotta say, I just didn't love this. I would go this as meh or bottom of I. It's not a bad show by any means, but I don't think it, comparative to the rest of these Star Wars projects, I don't think it really lives up to them even close. I think I would rather enjoy Force Awakens than Andor, and I actually mean that.
I think I want to put it in meh. I mean, it was a good project overall. It wasn't great, but then there's a lot of things that take it down, especially a whole 40-minute filler episode in there, which all shows have those, but that one felt really dragged out. And on top of that, the most Star Wars parts of the show were when Andor wasn't even there. I mean, he was in a prison for a good portion of that show, and his struggle in there was a part of it. And then the more Star Wars aspect was when he was off screen.
Yeah. Yeah. I like I said, I know a lot of fans either love that show and think it's peak Star Wars cinema, or some people just don't care for it. I don't think it's terrible, but I don't think it's peak. You know what I mean? I think there's better shows since then. I think Ahsoka is much better than Andor, for instance. And Andor is going to have a season 2, which maybe, super boost the next, season for me. I don't know. But I got to say, just what we have, season 1, I don't totally love. It's just I'd watch it because I'm a Star Wars fan, but nothing more than that. Next up we have is The Last Jedi. Obviously, this goes without being said, one of the most, divisive Star Wars projects ever released. I don't hate this movie, but rewatching it, I do understand a lot of the hate and dissatisfaction with this film, and I can kind of familiarize myself why people don't love it. I don't think it's terrible, but I gotta say, I can appreciate this almost on a level more than Andor and Force Awakens, just because it was more original with some of the ideas. But you can't, the way they kind of beat the characters up, the legendary characters of Luke Skywalker, Han Solo in the last film, but they didn't really add much in this one, Leia, those kind of characters that mean a lot to Star Wars fans everywhere, they just kind of spit on them, it felt like. And I don't know if that was intentional or if they were just trying to prop up their next characters, which is, a thing films do. I just really don't enjoy that. So I wouldn't go this as one of the worst Star Wars projects ever, but I was not satisfied with this. I see the potential. I think it has much more potential than Andor or Force Awakens, but I don't see how the path they went forward, I don't see how that they could have thought that was the best path. So I would go not satisfactory.
Yeah, I think it goes right about there. The one word to describe this movie would be controversial. There's a lot of interesting decisions they made, which some can be seen as good and some can be seen as the quite opposite. So it depends on who you ask.
Yep. Then we have Attack of the Clones. This is what I go back and forth on. I mean, I'd go second half, the last acts of the film, super, super fun. I love it. And the first acts, they're not to die over. Especially if you're just like a nerd, you don't care about the cringy Star Wars Anakin and Padme romance. Like, you don't care about that. Me personally, my personality, I don't mind it. I'm a romantic. Especially since when I started enjoying these with my wife, we were, dating at the time, so it kind of gave us something to bond over. So for that, it's, personally a little bit meaningful to me. But I can understand why people don't love it. And I don't think this is great. I'd go top of I enjoy this more than A New Hope, I think. But I don't think crazy more. I think this is like on the same as A New Hope. I just, in the middle of a trilogy, I think this could have done a little bit better of kind of revving things up. But I don't think it did a bad job by any means. I don't know. I'd go either bottom of great or top of I
think I want to put it in top of I think it's a great movie overall. Especially if you start watching the movie after they get into the Obi-Wan Kenobi fight with Boba Fett, their star fight. That's when the action starts picking up, and that's like the most entertaining part of it. There on out, it's fun to watch the whole thing. It all comes together and makes a pretty good film. It's not bad, but I think the action puts it a little bit above A New Hope.
Yeah. Then we have The Mandalorian, seasons 1, 2, and 3. Season 1 and 2 I think were pretty great. I was never really super keen on season 1, but I definitely do love season 2. And season 3 was just like the biggest meh you could have to offer. I don't know about this one. I would go probably in I'd probably go below A New Hope, but above Force Awakens. I think season 1 was pretty good for a Star Wars show. It wasn't anything to die over. But I think at the time, Star Wars fans were just happy to get something that wasn't controversial. But season 2, I think, was peak cinema for Star Wars. It was absolutely amazing. Not just the cameos and, like the plot devices of certain characters, but just the story and evolution of the characters within the story already developed. I think it was really, really interesting and just fun as a Star Wars fan, and just a good show to watch. Season 3 took a giant turn for the worse, in my opinion. I don't think it was like the worst show. Like, I don't think it's, terrible. I just think it doesn't really level up to season 1 and 2. And so this would probably be a show that rivals, Attack of the Clones and A New Hope. But I think season 3 definitely drags it down at this time. So I'd go bottom of or maybe a little bit above Force Awakens.
I'd put it above Force Awakens. It's a pretty good show overall. I mean, it's one of the better Disney Plus shows they released recently. And one thing I will say that really takes it down in the third season for me was Mandalorian and Grogu's decision to just, at the end of season 2, leave him with Luke and then take him right back at the beginning of season 3. It just feels like then there was no real sacrifice was made at the end of season 2. That kind of feels like the cliffhanger was all for nothing, kind of. I don't know. It's not bad at all. It was still pretty fun to watch, so, yeah.
Then we have the Clone Wars movie that came out in 2008, kind of the prequel to the Clone Wars show. I loved this as a kid. This isn't a great thing, but it's such a fun, nostalgic thing as a Clone Wars fan. I don't really know how to look at this without the lenses of nostalgia and as a kid, because that's all I can remember from this film. It's just a funny, cutesy thing that actually has some fun, cool Star Wars plots and developments in the overall settings of Star Wars. But it's also just a fun thing to watch as a kid. So I would go bottom of I don't think it's better than Force Awakens, but I think it's I think this is a fun thing. If you're not a Clone Wars fan, I don't really know how to look at this otherwise, because I'm only a Clone Wars fan. I've always been a Clone Wars fan. So it's I gotta say I'm a little bit biased reviewing this one, but that's just how I feel.
I like bottom of I because just above Andor, which was a pretty good show overall, but didn't really feel like Star Wars. This was a goofy kid Clone Wars show, as Clone Wars was supposed to be the first few seasons at least, but it was definitely a lot more Star Wars in it, and it had an actual plot that affects other things later on. So I think it was bottom of I. It's good.
Then we have Kenobi. Kenobi, for a lot of fans, people did not like, but I've always felt the need to remind people, yeah, there were lots of parts of Kenobi that were like just absurdly bad, like why are you doing that? That just seems dumb. But there are also parts of Kenobi that were like some of the most emotional parts of Star Wars that like really gave me the feels that I've seen in a while, and I really enjoyed those parts. So I always kind of refer to this as like I feel like Kenobi is like has bits of gold nuggets like wrapped in dog poop, right? Like there's some really awesome parts of it, but there's also some really stupid parts of it. You're like, why would you do that, right? So I put this right in the middle. I put it above Andor because I think it did some things that were more interesting than Andor, and at least felt like Star Wars. But I can't admit there's a lot of bad things about it. But you also, I feel like, have to remind yourself like there's some really emotional, great parts of this, right? The entrance of Darth Vader, where Kenobi's hiding and watching him, it's like a scene from a horror film, right? The final fight with Kenobi and Vader and Anakin's kind of face appears through the mask. That's amazing, right? And I guess I can call it the cameo, but Qui-Gon Jinn popping up, like people forget these parts of it. Those are really impactful moments in the Star Wars universe that I think really mean a lot overall.
Yeah, I like that top of Matt because it's crazy to see those amazing things in the same show where you just saw Obi-Wan Kenobi try to figure out a way around a gate where there is clearly 2 feet from to walk around it. And I know it's a minor thing, but there's a lot of just small weird things, and then there's decision things that affect the plot that do take it down. But then again, when Vader goes through that city and just starts snapping heads, that was some of the coolest Star Wars I've seen, some of the coolest Vader.
Then we have the original Clone Wars. This predates like the Clone Wars that we know now. There's like the 2004 and 3 stuff. This was fun, but like it's not canon, so it's kind of hard to rank it. I gotta say, as a Clone Wars fan, it's fun, but it's so much different than the Clone Wars that you know. Like if you haven't watched this, I definitely recommend watching it because it's absurdly different. But this is like what I imagine Star Wars fans were before the prequels, like how they imagined Jedi being, like just like these obnoxiously overpowered beings that could just like do things like Superman, right? And that's kind of what this show portrays. And whereas Clone Wars is a lot more grounded, they're just different but similar in the same way. I enjoy this. I would put it in the bottom of I definitely prefer the Clone Wars that we have now because it's more emotional and grounded. But as a Star Wars fan, I feel like this is just like a crazy pipe dream of like what Star Wars could be without boundaries.
Yeah, I like the bottom of I8, and one thing I really like about this is some of the things that happen in this were obviously all decanonized. Some of the things that happen in this later affected things in a weird kind of way. For example, that's the canonical reason for why Grievous has a cough is shown in this, even though it's kind of taken away. The whole series is taken out. There's just kind of cool nods to actual canon in this and kind of inspiration coming from this.
Then we have a Phantom Menace. I really do like Phantom Menace. I always feel like it's a boring film, and then I watch it, and then I'm surprised by how much I actually really enjoy it. I don't know. This one always surprises me. I always look back at it, not like bad, but like that one's like the worst prequel, I feel like. And then I watch it, I'm like, it always puts a smile on my face. I think it's better than Attack of the Clones, which is weird because Attack of the Clones is like one of the greatest battle Star Wars scenes ever. But Phantom Menace is, as a Star Wars fan, I think it's a little bit better. Which I'm trying to review this in a Star Wars fan, not as much as like a film fan. So I think Phantom Menace goes in the bottom of great for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably put it a little bit lower, but I'm not gonna argue too much there. They're all in that little area up there. I'd say bottom of great fits enough. I mean, at the end of this movie, it definitely puts a smile on your face seeing the victory, the cheesy song being played as everyone's all happy and the world's all at peace. But it's a fun smile.
Yeah, yeah, this is just the Star Wars show or a movie that I feel like is underappreciated sometimes. I think people like look past this because they want to get to the battle scene of Attack of the Clones. They want to get to Revenge of the Sith. Phantom Menace is a sleeper for sure. Then we have this TV series Rebels. I think Rebels is the second best show. I think it rivals Clone Wars at times. I really, really enjoy Rebels. I think this goes just a step below Star Wars and Clone Wars. It's similar. It struggles in the same ways. Sometimes it's goofy. Sometimes there's just blank plot lines that we don't know why we're following. Season 1 and 2 are a little too goofy, but the latter half of this show is like peak. It's so great. I love the last half of Star Wars Rebels. I would put it just a step below Clone Wars.
Yeah, I like it right there too. I mean, once Thrawn comes in, I mean, Maul, the world between worlds. There's so much cool lore you can get, and from these extremely fun characters all hiding from the Empire, it's a really fun experience.
Then we have Star Wars Resistance. I got to be honest, I haven't watched all of this. I watched like the first couple episodes, and I just wasn't feeling it. I don't love that art style. It's not necessarily anime, but it kind of is, and I don't really enjoy that. And this is not my favorite. And with all that being said, I feel like I don't know how to rank this. Besides, I haven't watched yet because I feel like I definitely am missing parts. This was supposed to be like the Clone Wars or like the Rebels of the new era of Star Wars, and I don't feel like it lived up. But I can't feel like I'm giving it a fair ranking if I haven't watched all of it. So I want to put it in I haven't watched yet. The couple episodes I liked, I watched, I didn't hate, but I didn't love. They were like meh. They were okay, but I would put it in I haven't watched yet, to be honest.
Yeah, I haven't watched it either. Doesn't really intrigue me too much. Doesn't affect any of the new stuff that comes out, but I'll get around to it eventually.
Then we have Revenge of the Sith. I mean, this is like almost every Star Wars fan's top 2 or 3 favorite. Most people's number 1. I put this in George Lucas. I still feel, like I said, it rivals Return of the Jedi, but at the moment, the way I'm feeling, I think Return of the Jedi is just better. Return of the Jedi is... It's just, I don't know. I feel like it captures more wholesome than Revenge of the Sith. Revenge of the Sith, you kind of know what's going to happen. You don't know, but you do know, right? Like, people watching this knew, okay, Anakin Skywalker's Darth Vader. They kind of knew what to expect, right? Return of the Jedi is like, we don't know what to expect. We don't know anything, right? I just feel like Return of the Jedi has more of that hopeful capture, whereas Revenge of the Sith obviously doesn't, because it's kind of the demise of a lot of heroes. I don't know. I can make an argument for either one why they're my favorite. I'd put this in George Lucas. I'd put it below for now, but either one would be fine for me.
Yeah, they both take the top 2 spots, so I'm not really going to complain in which one goes up top. I mean, the both at the very end are so emotional. The Obi-Wan Kenobi Anakin duel, the Luke Skywalker with Vader. I mean, these are just such emotional moments, and they're so fun and exciting. I mean, it's peak Star Wars. That's what they are. They're both just peak Star Wars movies.
Yeah. Then we have...
Sorry, coming from peak Star Wars movies.
Then we have... what is it called? The Last Skywalker. I don't even know why I can't remember that name. Last Skywalker. I don't want to put it in like straight up arse, but like... I really don't like this movie. I do... When I watched it the first time, I was kind of like bewildered. I was like, this is the end? Like, the end of the first trilogy had Return of the Jedi. The end of the second trilogy had Revenge of the Sith. And those were like the greatest Star Wars movies I'd ever seen. And I was expecting something great because I didn't love The Last Jedi. So I was like, what is The Last Skywalker? What is that going to be? And man, not only did I not love it during the time, and so maybe I'm a little bit biased because of that, watching it back, I'm like, this is a terrible film. It's not great. I feel like this movie knows it's bad, and that's what it's playing off of. Like, they're just like, all right, we need to wrap this story up, and that's it. Like, I don't know how to rank it any higher. People who like it, God bless you, you're allowed to like whatever you want. But, like, I don't know. I have a hard time liking this. I have a hard time making any argument. I used to try to be an argument because I hate when people pile on things just for the sport of piling it on. It just doesn't seem fair. But, like, there's not a lot of arguments of why this is a better Star Wars film than anything above it. So I'd put it in the bottom.
Yeah, I think it goes right there. I mean, the one thing that you can say is visual effects, and that's only because it came out recently. That's it. Right? I mean, if any of these other movies came out when this movie came out, they would have the same visual effects, and then it wouldn't even be a question. I'm not going to take a movie off of that one thing and make it... No, there's so many things you can go off of. Not good.
Then we have Rogue One. I think this was a pleasant surprise for a lot of fans when this was coming out during the Disney era. I still really, really love this. This is what, like, these new Disney shows, I feel like, should live up to this, right? Because, like, a lot of these shows take place in, like, the height of the Empire, or, like, with the Imperial remnants from, like, the novels, Heir of the Empire. People were, like, kind of imagine this kind of overarching antagonist that was shown in Rogue One, but we never really get that anymore. I feel like Rogue One did a super good job of that, and I think that's what a lot of fans like. I really enjoy this. I put this in bottom of George Lucas. I don't think it rivals the Revenge of the Sith, Return of the Jedi. Yeah, I would move... Yeah, no, I'd put it bottom of Return of George Lucas. I think it's better than Empire Strikes. Yeah, no, I'd put Empire Strikes Back up to George Lucas, and I'd put Rogue One at the top of great. I think it's better than Clone Wars because I don't think it has any faults like Clone Wars does. But I think Empire Strikes Back is a little bit better. I just think because there's so many more protagonists to be in love with than Rogue One is.
Yeah, I mean, Rogue One, it's such an emotional movie. It's so good. There's not really much you can harp on it. As Sammy said, there's nothing really negative to say about it, which is why you put it above Clone Wars. And it's a really fun watch, especially if you watch this right into A New Hope, how it kind of goes almost scene to scene. It's a great movie, and it's very well executed.
Then we have Ahsoka. I love Ahsoka. Ahsoka is one of my favorite Disney Plus projects yet. The ending is like the weakest part for it, right? Like the Thrawn battles and like the Stormtroopers battles. That's like the weakest part by far to me. But they knew they were setting something up with that. So like I feel like they felt like they couldn't end it abruptly. They felt like they had to kind of keep building something up, which I feel like took the air out of the room when you were watching the finale. You're like, that's it. But the rest of the show is so good. I love this. I think it's, I don't know, I don't think it's better than New Hope, but I think it's better than The Mandalorian. Because there's not as many flaws in Season 1 as there is in Season 3 of Mandalorian. And I think that saves it. I get why people don't love it because they're expecting a little bit more from Thrawn. And I kind of was too. But the show's not called Thrawn. The show's called Ahsoka. And I think it does an tremendous job on really building on the character of Ahsoka and then building on the different relationships with Ahsoka. And while Thrawn's not great in this show, I think the arrival and entrance of Thrawn is amazing. And I think there's a lot of space they can build up with him. I think they can make him really great going forward in Season 2.
Yeah, I mean, this was just overall a fun watch. And I mean, we're at the end of 2024 right now. The ending being kind of underwhelming, which I'll 100% agree it is, only makes me that much more excited for Ahsoka Season 2. Because that they left you off on a cliffhanger, and it felt really weird because it seemed like there was going to be a big battle, and then it just got pulled up, the rug out from under you. So I'm so excited for Season 2. I feel like if they do what they did in the first season, it's only going to go up. Yeah. So I'm pumped.
And you forget the characters like Baylan Skoll, Shin Hati, Ezra. There's a lot of side characters, so you're like, dang, I'm actually really interested in those characters too. So then we have Solo. I enjoy Solo. I don't know why people hate this. I mean, there are reasons I understand. I don't think this is crazy great. I think I put it below The Mandalorian. I put it, below The Mandalorian. I'd put it a step above Force Awakens. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of potential for this one movie. Like, this movie, I feel like propelled so many cool different parts of Star Wars that I really enjoy. And it did a decent job building on the character of Han Solo that it doesn't make me hate it. There are some weird parts that feel like, I don't think that would be Han Solo saying that. That just seems out of character, right? I don't know. I enjoy this. I enjoy it more than The Mandalorian, but I gotta admit, Mandalorian Season 2 was much better than anything from Solo. But I don't know. I would put it on par with The Mandalorian. I think Ahsoka is better than both, but Solo's on par with The Mandalorian for me personally.
Yeah, I think that's just about right where it is. And one thing I like to mention is it's called Solo: A Star Wars Story, and I think that's a perfect explanation of this. You're not comparing it to the other movies where everything's happening at once. This is just hey, here's Solo, and they have spin-off movies of every side character and every IP these days, and I think this one was very well executed, and he's not even hardly, I mean, he's a very main side character. If you ever ask anyone who their favorite Star Wars character is, if they're an OT fan, original trilogy fan, Han Solo's a top 3 answer. Everyone loves Han Solo. He's such a fun character, so, yeah.
Then we have Tales of the Empire. I was super excited about this. Like, I was super pumped. I love Tales of the Jedi. Tales of the Empire, the trailer got me super hyped. Then I watched it, and I was super not satisfied. I was like, there's so much wasted potential. This literally embodies not satisfactory to me. Like, this was like so much potential in this one short series. It's short, so they have a limited space, and with the limited space, I feel like they put filler in a limited space show. That's crazy to me. I don't know. I get mad every time I think about this. When you have a limited series and they're shorts, you don't have a lot of time. You don't have time to be putting freaking filler in, right? Tales of the Jedi doesn't waste pretty much any time. The first episode kind of does, but besides that, Tales of the Jedi gets to it. Tales of the Empire does not. They waste time. I I'm not satisfied with Tales of the Empire. I'd put it probably top of the Tales of the Empire.
Top of where?
Or not satisfactory.
Yeah, that's a good description. I'm not satisfied. There's a couple cool plot points. There's a cool bunch of things that it hits on, especially Thrawn. But at the end of the day, I'm like, Tales of the Jedi, which we're about to get into, I wanted more of that, and I loved every second of that. There was times in Tales of the Empire where I'm like, am I really watching this? So, yeah.
Tales of the Jedi I love. I would probably put it top of I or bottom of great. For what it was so fun. It was a in a time where Disney Plus puts out a lot of stinkers or, controversial stuff. I think almost everyone universally just loves Tales of the Jedi. Like, it's just, there's not much to dislike. See, episode 1 with Baby Ahsoka's like a little slow. You're like, meh. But it's like 3 minutes. And then it goes right into some great Ahsoka episodes. And then you have some really cool Qui-Gon episodes or Dooku episodes. And I just really love that. So I'd probably put bottom of great or top of I.
I think it should go bottom of great. I mean, if the only thing you complain about a series is that you want more of it, there wasn't enough, then that's a great series right there.
Yeah. Then we have the Acolyte. Man, this one I kind of have a hard time ranking because I feel like this one's very similar to The Last Jedi. Like, it was just very disrespectful to the Star Wars story and Star Wars characters. Like, it really wanted to do its own thing, which I give props. Do your own thing. Make some unique story. But don't try to spit on the characters and the established setting of Star Wars. Like, don't make the Jedi out to be bad, right? Like, let that kind of be something that, like, reminisce in the back of your mind. Like, oh, were the Jedi wrong or right? Like, don't try to hit on that. Like, that's not what the Jedi are supposed to be. The Jedi are supposed to be these idols and heroes of hope, right? And I feel like they just really spit on the Jedi in this, and I hate that. But that's not what Star Wars is. And I get, like, their intentions were trying to be, unique in that way, right? But, like, that's not what Star Wars is, right? I really did enjoy that. But I gotta admit, there were some decent parts. The Sith part, while it was really weird, them trying to, like, decanonize Palpatine, right? Like, the words that he was saying, where we haven't seen a Sith in a millennia, and, like, talking about Darth Plagueis, and, like, this is 100 years before, and now Darth Plagueis is showing up. Like things like that, like, those were weird. But then, like, the choreography of the lightsaber fighting, I think was really, really good, right? And the Sith, while his whole presence was weird, he was very dark, and I really enjoyed the Sith that we did get. So I would probably put this right on the same level as Last Jedi. Above or below, I don't know, but somewhere in that area.
Yeah, I'm going to go with below. I don't really know. I was going to say because it leaves a bad taste in my mouth, but so does Last Jedi.
I would say I would rather watch The Acolyte than The Last Jedi. Last Jedi, what did it do? Like, besides ruin some of your favorite characters. At least Acolyte is like, okay, I mean, this Sith guy, Khmer's, why does he exist? I don't know. I feel like that ruins some things, but it gives some interesting points, right? The lightsaber fighting was really cool. I don't know. I would rather watch The Acolyte than Return of the Jedi or Last Jedi. That's just how I feel. Then we have The Bad Batch. Bad Batch is not a bad show, but it's not a great show. It tries to live up to Clone Wars. I definitely don't think it does. But there's some really fun parts, and by the end of the series, you really do love the crew of the Bad Batch, and I think that alone, you can't put it too low. I'd probably put it above Ahsoka. I pretty much love all of the animated stuff more than all of the live action stuff. I would put it on par with Ahsoka. Below, above, you could kind of decide what you want. There's a lot more filler than the Bad Batch, but there's so much more time in Bad Batch. There's like 16 episodes for 3 seasons, right? So that's kind of hard to get your head around. But I think if you get to, like, the good stuff, it's on par with Ahsoka, I think.
I think it goes just barely above Ahsoka. I mean, they're both great series. It's crazy to think that one episode, you're watching an episode about them trying to race the speeder the fastest, and the next episode they're talking about the corruption in the Galactic Empire. It goes deep into the lore, and then it has some kid episodes, which, I mean, they're fine, because they're relatively few and far between, and when they have a kid episode, the next one's usually pretty fun to watch. So, I mean, it's an animated show. Kids are allowed to watch it. I have no problem with that. It's fun. I like it. At the end of the day, I'd rewatch this definitely multiple times.
Then we have Book of Boba Fett. This is a show that makes me mad. Every time I hear this show, I'm like, this is the worst show. I gotta remember there are some good parts to it, right? Like Boba, when he is cool and dark and edgy in this show, it's really fun. You're like, this is awesome. You know, some of like the cool characters that were introduced, like Black Stanson, who's a character from the comics that's like, this is awesome. We finally get this character in live action. It's so cool. Cobb Vanth is cool. And the Mandalorian stuff was super fun. And the Luke stuff and Grogu stuff, well, it kind of ruined the ending of season 2. It was still really cool and it was fun. I wish they didn't bring Grogu back, but the stuff that we did get besides that, I think was really fun. So I'd put somewhere in non-satisfactory. I don't know. There's some parts that I forget. Like, there were some cool parts. But, man, I think this is one of the worst Disney Plus shows. I hate this more than I hate The Acolyte, if I'm being honest.
I think it's crazy that when I'm going back to remember this, I'm like, okay, what's in this? Oh yeah, The Mandalorian was in this. There was multiple episodes where you don't see Boba Fett and it was just The Mandalorian, which is just still mind-boggling to me. I get that's what the plot was being pushed at the time. And we said that Ahsoka had a pretty underwhelming ending. Okay, Thrawn leaves. We don't know what's going to happen, and they're getting ready for Season 2. This was underwhelming to a different degree. They had a final fight scene, but that final fight scene was, like, so weird. I'm just like, really? This is what you gathered all these people for?
Then we have Visions, Season 1 and 2. This is not my cup of tea. I've watched parts of both seasons. I try to give it a fair shot multiple times. I definitely understand what this is. It's a not canonized version of Star Wars with different art studios making it. It's just not my thing, but I don't think it's bad. You know, this is just like, again, I'm not an anime guy, so that doesn't work for me. B, I really only care about the canon stuff, so that doesn't work for me. But like that doesn't mean this is bad by any means. I'd put this in the bottom of meh because it's just not my cup of tea. I think this has to be a specific person's taste, but there's nothing wrong with this. It's just different.
Yeah, I didn't watch the full thing, but the couple episodes I did watch, they were like, yeah, this is cool, but didn't really want to go back and watch all the rest of it just because it didn't really affect the rest of the plot.
Then we have a couple shows that I haven't watched. I know Ethan hasn't watched. Star Wars. I don't know. It's this show about all the animated women of Star Wars. We haven't watched it. There's not much to it. Star Wars Young Jedi Adventures, Star Wars Droids, Star Wars Ewoks. These are like all like kid shows, like 4+ shows. I've actually watched Young Jedi Adventures because of my daughter. I was like, oh, maybe my kid will watch it. She didn't care about it, so I definitely didn't watch it otherwise. So all those we haven't watched. I know, we're not real Star Wars fans. Lastly, we have Skeleton Crew. This is obviously airing right now at the time we're filming. I gotta say, so far, I'm enjoying it. I'm not loving it. Something that really drives me insane about this is the music. I cannot stand the music in this. Maybe I'm just an old hag who just wants it back to the good old days, but I cannot stand the music of this show. I think if they fix that, this show would be actually really fun. But that alone kind of spoils it for me. So I'd go top of meh right now because I think there's lots of potential. But there's obviously been potential in all these other shows that we didn't like. So I would go top of meh for right now. But there hasn't been anything wrong with it so far. So I think that's working in its favor for sure.
Yeah, I think it goes in that same category as Andor, where it seems like it's a pretty good show right now. And I don't know. I'm not going to say too much about it because we're only 3 episodes in at the time of recording this. But it's interesting.
So there you guys have it. We're going to go over the list real quick for our podcast listeners. Starting at the top, we have George Lucas. We have Return of the Jedi, Revenge of the Sith, and Empire Strikes Back. Then going to the next tier, we have Great with Rogue One. Then Star Wars, The Clone Wars Show. Then Star Wars Rebels, Phantom Menace, and then Tales of the Jedi. Then moving to the next tier, we have I with Attack of the Clones, A New Hope, Bad Batch, then Ahsoka, Mandalorian, Solo, Force Awakens, Star Wars The Clone Wars movie, Star Wars The Clone Wars the original show from 2004, and then we go to the meh tier, starting with Skeleton Crew, then Kenobi, Andor, and lastly Vision, and then not satisfactory, we have Tales of the Empire, The Acolyte, Star Wars The Last Jedi, Boba Fett, and then straight up arse, we have The Last Skywalker. And then we have a couple of shows we haven't watched. You already heard those. So there you guys have it. Let us know what you guys agree, disagree with down in the comments. Let us know what your guys' least favorite Star Wars project is and your favorite Star Wars project is. And yeah, let us know what you guys think down in the comments. Anything last words, Afton?
That's about it for me.
We hope you guys did enjoy this video. Probably not a lot of you did because it's long-winded, but nonetheless, we hope you did. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe. Helps us out a lot. If you guys are listening on podcast, don't forget to hit that follow, download, and share. And we'll see you guys in the next one.